This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
PayPal lets you pay all your pals, like your graduation gifters.
Who's paying for the mattress topper?
You mean the beanbag chair?
Aren't we getting a mini fridge?
Can we create a pool on PayPal? It lets us collect the money before we buy.
Ooh, yes, that's smart.
Glad we can agree on something.
Easily pool, split, and send money with PayPal. Get started in the PayPal app. A PayPal account is required to send and receive money. A balance account is required to create a pool.
Just in case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barrero's Top 5 at 5.
You know what? This is going on a limb, and I may regret it. I think the Iowa Hawkeye women's basketball program misses Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, they're getting routed by Oklahoma, right?
They got routed. I think it was 96-63 by Oklahoma. They were I want to say they were like a 6 seed.
Iowa was a 6.
Yeah,
yep.
Iowa was a
Oklahoma's
6.
a
Oklahoma
3.
was a better. It was not competitive at all. So they have a new coach, right?
Jan Jansen,
yeah,
the longtime Lisa Bluter assistant.
I think, can you confirm, there's a rumor that I have not been able to confirm to this point, that the Lynx are talking about moving their game with the Fever this year to the People's Stadium where the Vikings play? Is that, that Cheryl Reeve is spearheading the effort?
I have not heard those rumors.
Okay, so it's not confirmed.
It's not.
It's
no.
sort of like the banning of pharmaceuticals. It may not be quite true.
Not quite
even
true.
If we'd like to think it might happen.
Oklahoma, by the way, coached by a former Hawkeye.
Is that right?
Yes, and they wore pins today, both teams, number 52 for a former Hawkeye. And I'm bringing it up because I went to Iowa for 2 years. Not a sterling record. Not a great experience.
You were honest about that. Yeah.
Jamie Cavey, maybe my one friend from Iowa. Awesome person, awesome girl. She passed away from cancer like last fall. She was a teammate of the Oklahoma coach.
Is that right?
She was also
Okay.
the radio broadcaster. So in lead up to this game, they made pins number 52 and had both staffs wear them.
Oh, wow.
It was a pretty cool last couple of days because the death is still pretty raw. I want to say it was in the fall. But I thought that was a nice touch.
Well, it is, and I had no idea about that that angle at all. But I'm glad they are at least trying to pay proper homage.
But they do miss Caitlin Clark. You're right.
I think I can. I mean, I might get in trouble for saying it, but I think it's true.
Be careful with that.
Yeah.
Go for basketball. In the headlines today, the worst kept secret in Minnesota sports, in college sports,
Pretty
certainly
close,
in
yeah.
college basketball. Nico Medved is officially the 19th head coach in program history. He is one of us.
Yeah.
It was announced today, press conference tomorrow. He's going to join you right around 4 o'clock tomorrow. Just got that text. Not only, Dan, did he get a bachelor's from Minnesota, he also got a master's degree, which is 2 more degrees than I have from any school. 12 years of head coaching experience, overall record 222, 172, was 143 and 85 at Colorado State. Took the Rams to 3 NCAA tournaments in the last 4 years. Just won the Mountain West Conference title, at least a tournament title in Vegas, and was a whisker.
Yeah, on the brink.
Away
Yeah.
from the Sweet 16. We probably would have had to wait at least 4 or 5 more days to make this announcement, but Maryland's Derek Queen with a buzzer beater after he traveled to knock the Rams out. Our coach is already getting jobbed by the officials.
Yeah, although I feel the same way that Miles did, which was the more he looked at it, slowed down, he thought it was travel, but he didn't think it was egregious. And I'm in that camp. I don't know what egregious would be. I guess
Right.
three or four steps.
What Brianna Stewart did in Game 5 of the WNBA Finals.
That was a good example.
That was egregious.
About. Yeah.
Last night was not at the Stewie level.
That was, though, a hell of a game. That was a really nice Final 32 ball game. And as I said earlier, it's a fantasy for Coyle because deep down, even though I doubt he'll ever publicly admit it, he wanted Colorado State to lose so he could get on with this thing and get it done. But he also wanted his new coach and the team that he's coaching up till now to look good. And that all happened, including with a terrifically designed out-of-bounds play that led to the three-point shot that put Colorado State ahead and in great position, you would think, to win the game against a really good, talented Maryland team. And I honestly thought, if you do the old bit about, well, who looked better, I thought Colorado State start to finish looked like the better team. Or at least this day They played better, and we're in good position. And Maryland is deep and very talented.
You mentioned Tim Miles, the former North Dakota State coach. That's where we met him. Former Nebraska coach, now at San Jose State. Also spent a long time at Colorado State, where Nico Medved, according to Tim, was his first hire when he got that job in 2006. Here's about 50 seconds, a little bit of the Nico flavor between you and Tim Miles.
Is he fire and brimstone guy? Is he cool, calm, collected guy? Give me a little hint of his personality.
Guys, come on now, for crying out loud. We got to do this right. That's a pretty good Nico impersonation.
Not bad.
All those old CSU guys are giggling. But he's a great guy, big personality, really smart, can read a room. You know what I mean? He knows, so you walk into a living room, you're recruiting, he understands, okay, this is what's important. He goes to a donor group or whatever. He knows what's important.
Dunkers!
He gets it. He's got a great personality. He's a leader. Like I said, he's got that vision. I love his vision for what he thinks, and I'm sure he's portrayed that to Mark Coyle and the Minnesota constituents, and you'll hear a lot more of it here coming soon as he's going to be the official mouthpiece of the Gophers.
And that starts tomorrow. Well, it started today, but publicly it starts tomorrow with a noon press conference. And like I said, he will join you at 4 o'clock. Anything you want to add about Nico before we move on?
I think, like I said, from an X's and O's standpoint, I get aroused if you say the name Beeline. I mean, I've always loved the Beeline Michigan offense. And he says a combination of that and a little of the Ivy League. What's the Ivy League one, too? The Princeton offense, too. I do like what I've seen of the offense. Look, we've said at the start of the show there are no sure things, but I think the thing that the AD had to do this time, I think he knew he had to do this, is not hire a coach in training and hope that the guy is just ready for it and we identify him before anybody else does. He can't afford that any longer. He needs a guy who's done it for a while, even if it's not been at this level. He's been a head coach for 10 years. And so whether he ultimately succeeds or fails here, I don't think it's going to be because, well, he was just new to the job and just figuring some stuff out and there were some big hurdles and maybe it was too much to ask. This guy has been a head coach, has been through at least some of the trials, has figured out how to put together a team, how to run an offense, whatever the case may be. And with all the challenges we have here, I think that the going all the way back to Richard Pitino, the idea of hiring a coach in training makes absolutely less sense here than pretty much anywhere, and that's what's different about this particular hire. Now, it's interesting to hear Miles say big personality, because I've not heard, that was one of the things I'd heard a long time ago. Really good coach, but, can he handle all that other stuff, and can he bring some charisma to the room? Everybody, I think, will go into this with an open mind, and we'll see. And maybe it's Midwestern, understated charisma. And maybe that plays better here anyway. I don't know. But that's, I think, going to be one of the questions moving forward. We'll look forward to chatting with him tomorrow.
Trend with Coyle after the big swing risky hire. Whalen into Plitzelwhite, Johnson into Medved.
Exactly.
Because Dawn Plitzelwhite, basically the same resume.
100%.
I just go win a bunch of places, get my teams where they need to be, and there we go.
I'm not learning on the job. Whatever I am, I'm not. You're not going to have to project whether I can learn to figure this stuff out.
The 41-31 Minnesota Timberwolves are back in the 7th spot. Thank you, Oklahoma City. They beat the Clippers last night. Clippers are kind of surging here a little bit. Clippers are on everybody.
Really good defensive team, they tell me.
Kawhi Leonard back and playing. Mm-hmm. He's pretty good, fan has learned. But the Wolves are back in action tonight against the Indiana Pacers. You can hear that game on the Timberwolves channel of your iHeartRadio app. They're a half game behind the Golden State Warriors, and the Warriors not only have one game in hand on us. Remember, for a while they had more. Right. We're a game behind them in the loss column, a half game behind them in the standings. They have lost one in a row. The Wolves have won one in a row. They righted the New Orleans wrong on Friday night, routing the Zionless Pelicans, I think, right? I watched the game when I was in Toledo, the Wednesday night game. What a performance that was. I'm remarkable. Sure you had some thoughts about that on Thursday. Yeah. Anthony Edwards, Finchie says, according to Alan Horton, the radio voice of the team.
Game time decision, right?
Game time decision with that right thumb. Is it like a laceration or cut or something?
One of the reasons I was looking forward to chatting with Johnny today, but we can get to tomorrow, is he had this lengthy analytical piece that was it was kind of daunting regarding the fact that what I believe for a long time is more than visual. It's true that Anthony Edwards is not a great finisher. In terms of percentage of times he finishes with a basket at the basket.
Makes sense.
And we were talking about this yesterday, and a couple people wondered about, could it be he's got small hands? I have to find out how, compared, because part of Jordan's greatness with the ball around the basket, obviously, was great balance, right? Leaping ability. But he had big hands, too. We talk about this as a quarterback position. Maybe Anthony Edwards' problem at the rim is small hands. I'm just asking. I don't know. I don't even know if they're small.
Right.
But could it be?
It absolutely could be.
Yes, it could be.
Do you think?
Because you don't see, you would see those shots of Jordan doing the old,
right.
Connie Hawkins palming the ball
with one hand.
We don't see Edwards, I don't know how many other players we see do it, but Edwards does. I don't think he does it that much.
No, we only, with Anthony's hands, we only see him struggle to dribble sometimes.
Wow, that is so cold.
Well, it's not a cheap shot.
That sounds really, really, really vicious.
Sometimes it doesn't look like he has good handle of it.
You know
what I mean? Doesn't have a tight handle yet.
The other thing is mid-range shots, one of the worst in the league.
Which doesn't make sense.
Which makes no sense because I said take the mid-range. Don't be afraid of it. But he hits a bad percentage compared to pretty much anybody who takes mid-range shots.
So it's the rematch after last Monday night's Obi Toppin game. This one in Indiana, the greatest basketball arena in the world. Just ask them. They say that in their radio broadcast. I heard it one time. I know you don't. 6 o'clock tip, Timberwolves channel.
I haven't been there lately, but it was nice when I went.
Wild on the fan tonight, and Jonas Brodeen's not going to play.
Great.
He didn't re-aggravate his injury, but John Hines telling Joe Smith in the media, it's just not ideal timing with 3 games in 4 days. So Brodeen is out. Declan Chisholm is in. Gus Bus, who won the NHL Star of the Week, is back in the net for the Wild.
Why wouldn't he be?
He's been outstanding, and they've needed him to be outstanding,
yes.
right? As they've tried to hang on to this thing. It's the Dallas Stars on the road tonight, a game you can hear right here on the Fan as I pull up the standings to make sure I give you the most accurate information here in the top 5 at 5. The Wild with 85 points are 4 points clear of the Blues. They have the top wild card spot, 8 points clear of the Flames. With, if you're wondering how close are they to being in danger of falling out. 4 points behind the Lanch in the Central.
Still no word on when Kaprizov will start skating.
Haven't heard yet?
I don't think so. Maybe we have and we don't know about it.
I haven't heard much.
No.
I haven't heard any rumblings.
Maybe they're keeping it a secret.
All right, there's your straddle.
Yep. Let's do it. Cris Carter will join at the bottom of the hour. We'll get to that other news on the March item that does fall under the classification of done as a society. Don't go away.
PayPal lets you pay all your pals, like your graduation gifters.
Who's paying for the mattress topper?
You mean the beanbag chair?
Aren't we getting a mini fridge?
Can we create a pool on PayPal? It lets us collect the money before we buy.
Ooh, yes, that's smart.
Glad we can agree on something.
Easily pool, split, and send money with PayPal. Get started in the PayPal app. A PayPal account is required to send and receive money. A balance account is required to create a pool.
Wolves.
News on the march.
I hold in my right hand a printout that bears the following headline. The Trump administration accidentally texted me its war plans.
Excuse me?
U.S. national security leaders included me in a group chat about upcoming military strikes in Yemen. I didn't think it could be real. Then the bombs started falling. Jeffrey Goldberg is the editor, I believe, of The Atlantic. Atlantic.com. It's a publication we quote from often. I find its willingness to hammer across the political aisle. I mean, they're definitely left of center, I would say, overall, but their ability to question things on both sides of from both Sharks and Jets has always refreshed me. And in this case, some of you may be aware of this story. He's not making it up. It's not satirical. It's not onion-like. There was a group chat that included the war plans for those military strikes in Yemen in what's described as a secure messaging app. So in this case, I mean, it wasn't that the app got, you could say, someone got inside of it. It's they somehow put the editor of The Atlantic in the group chat, which is remarkable. He posted a story earlier today. The National Security Council said the text chain appears to be authentic, and it contained operational details of forthcoming strikes on Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen, including information about targets, weapons the U.S. would be deploying, and attack sequencing. Not immediately clear if the specifics of the military operation were classified, but they often are, and at the least are kept secure, you'd like to think, to protect service members and operational security. There's some story anymore. It's hard to say any story leaves you speechless. One could argue because there's a million of them. It feels like, every day, and no one will believe me when I say it. But this one would fall under that classification. We go, what? How? The chain in the Signal group included Tulsi Gabbard, Trump's director of national intelligence, which makes sense.
She should be in there.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Lil Marco, which I think makes some sense, right?
Marco.
Remember?
Yes, I do.
And a few others, and you go, what's wrong with that? How is this possible? And obviously, what does this mean regarding the bad guys around the world and their ability, perhaps, to wittingly or unwittingly get in the middle of all of this intelligence and stuff as well? A statement late Monday, White House spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt said the president still has the utmost confidence in Waltz, as in Mike Waltz, Trump's national security advisor, no relation to Tim Walz, and spelled differently, and the national security team. Trump told reporters, "I don't know anything about it. You're telling me about it for the first time." He added that the Atlantic, quote, was not much of a magazine, which is neither here nor there, but see you later. Is about as classically Trump as one could get. And by the way, it's not a very good magazine anyway. Government officials have used Signal for organizational correspondence, but it is not classified and can be hacked. Privacy and tech experts say the popular end-to-end encrypting messaging and voice call app is more secure than conventional texting, but it still doesn't sound like it's there's. I mean, we all, I think, have this assumption, right? That, well, the United States government, they got access to some of the greatest ways to hide stuff and to make sure stuff is secure than anybody in the world, right? And I think what we're learning over a period of time, and not just in this administration, but others, because there was a lot of, remember your guy, Jake Sullivan?
Yeah.
He supposedly was sending a bunch of emails, classified emails to Hillary's private email address. I don't know if it's just sort of this cavalier, what's a big deal? It's not that big a deal. Chances are it's going to be fine, and I'm in a hurry. So I'd rather, the other thing, I got to go through 9 channels to get this to her. I got to get it to her, right? So I think we maybe at some point, as frightening as this is, just have to live with the belief, just assume that all sorts of stuff is getting out there all of the time. And in this case, what makes it ironic is, as I said, not only is it a media member, but it's an editor of a publication that on occasion has been very critical of Trump, which is, I'm sure, what annoys him more than anything else. That this would be the media outlet represented is part of what makes the story so remarkable. You know what I'm saying?
This is the second News on the March story that you've done today, right?
Correct.
What did we learn about the first News on the March story moments after we talked about it?
That it wasn't true.
That's what I assumed about this story for a good 10 to 15 minutes.
You thought it was an onion thing.
Because you said, how can this possibly happen? How would this possibly happen? It's one of those, because as you're sitting there doom scrolling all day, lots of things are popping up, especially now.
You need to move over to Blue Sky, or whatever it's called.
Sky?
Blue Sky, whatever.
But we have no idea what we're looking at a lot of times. I have to consciously wonder, why is this in my algorithm? Am I pausing on this?
Yeah.
Should I be pausing on this? Am I going to get a lot more of this now? I get a lot of stuff about Indianapolis now that I didn't necessarily ask for. But this was one today where I had to assume, I had to check and recheck multiple times. Is anybody else writing about this? Is this the real Atlantic? Is the Wall Street Journal,
right.
New York Times, CNN? Are other media outlets talking about this? Because this does not seem like it could possibly be real. But it's all too real, and it's spectacular. On cue, Justin from Duluth, are you comparing this to Hillary's emails? Not Hillary's emails. He was sending classified information to her email. That's the point. Don't get lost in the weeds. It doesn't matter if one's more egregious than the other. We're talking about mainly this.
But the idea, it's not a matter of, I don't care about Hillary's emails necessarily, but if he's using her email account, easily hacked with classified information, that too is not good. Just accept it. Don't be in that sharks and jets world where it can only be bad when we can feast on it on one side and not the other. And we've made the emphasis today on what's happening right now. And by the way, if we were doing the seal of approval twice today, we'd give it to Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor. When he realized the conversation was authentic, he immediately left, informed the relevant senior official, and made the public aware without disclosing intelligence that could damage the United States. If you want to know why the public isn't the media now, start with Jeff. Now, you could say, well, he doesn't have to write about it at all, did he? And he did do that. Right. But he at least, I think, tried to get out of it, informed the individuals that that was the case, and everybody can move on with the rest of their life as well. I honest to God, I may have to go through another stretch where I'm not reading texts. I really might, because in the end, we end up hearing more than from anyone from the ideologues who are so stuck in their own, I'm the good guys, they're the bad guys, that they immediately assume if you bring up another occasion where there was a security breach that should not have happened and that was well reported at the time by many of these same media outlets as being dangerous and unfair, that then, well, equivalency, what are you doing? And if you want to know why we're screwed up politically, it's the folks who are texting. So maybe I just block more people, or perhaps I just shut down the text line for a day or two and try to get back to some sense of normalcy. Cris Carter is coming.
PayPal lets you pay all your pals, like your graduation gifters.
Who's paying for the mattress topper?
You mean the beanbag chair?
Aren't we getting a mini fridge?
Can we create a pool on PayPal? It lets us collect the money before we buy.
Ooh, yes, that's smart.
Glad we can agree on something.
Easily pool, split, and send money with PayPal. Get started in the PayPal app. A PayPal account is required to send and receive money. A balance account is required to create a pool.
Up next. We are coming up on basically a full 1 month Salvation Army food drive that will culminate on March 26th. That's this Wednesday, with what is called Collection Day. And they tell me that if you bring your collected food to the KARE 11 studio this Wednesday from 3 to 6:30. That's funny. That's exactly when we're on the air. Thanks a lot for, we want people to be listening. Although I guess you could be listening. You're right. I'm sure they'll have it on in the background at KARE 11 for a special community-wide weigh-in event. And there, you'll have the opportunity to not only meet WNBA Hall of Famer Lindsay Whalen, but also our next guest, Cris Carter, will be there as well. He's been front and center and has spoken quite eloquently and emotionally over the years about his attachment to Salvation Army and the help that it represents to him as well. So if you're looking, by the way, for more information, centralusa.salvationarmy.org. And then there's a bunch of slashes. I think if you get to the org, you'll get there close enough. We'll give you more details in a minute as we say hi to Cris Carter. Mr. Carter, how are you, sir?
Very good. How are you?
Well, we're living the dream. There's a lot of breaking news here. Golden Gophers have hired a new men's basketball coach. The Timberwolves are trying to figure out if they could stay on the consistent train. They've had some difficulty doing that last year after the big Karl Anthony Towns trade, after, as you know, I'm sure, a great run to the Western Conference Finals. And there's this little thing called the Minnesota Vikings that have now become a 12-month-a-year story. There is no downtime for your favorite football team, as you know. And before we get into some of the details on this big event that you're a part of and your ongoing belief in the concept, I got to admit, in the back of my mind, I said, I wonder what Cris Carter thinks about all of this quarterback stuff here in terms of ultimately the direction it appears the Vikings have chosen to go. Because I'm going to admit something to you. I was starting to get enticed by the possibility of a marriage with Aaron Rodgers. I didn't like the way he played last year, but you know what, though? He's still got some ball in him. There's good infrastructure around here. You got a coach who I think is good working with quarterbacks. And what an unbelievable story if it worked. So was Cris Carter enticed? Were you interested? Do you believe the Vikings might have made a mistake not going down the Aaron Rodgers road?
No, I don't think they made a mistake, but I think that when you're trying to resolve an issue with a current quarterback, a quarterback that you've drafted, and then now how do we have some type of senior, older guy in the room? Because I think that also, with Josh McCown in the room, that he's going to help level some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if Brett Favre and if Aaron Rodgers, earlier in their career, if they had said or even mentioned or didn't mention that they were not responsible for the other quarterbacks in the room growing,
mm-hmm.
see, if he had never said that, then I would have been, I'll take a shot at it because I believe in KO. It's not a matter if I believe in Aaron Rodgers. I believe in KO. And what they did this offseason by fortifying that offensive line, and we're a lot bigger football team than we have been in a long time, which I do believe we're going to match up with Philadelphia and Detroit, the Rams. That's what we have to be. So I can understand why you have it as one of the action items. And then you look at the last two games of the season, look at, okay, where do we have problems? So in spending that money on Sam Darnold, which we thought was a no-brainer, let's spend it on the offensive line, fortify that.
Yeah.
We can have more of a dominant running game. We know we can throw the ball on anyone. But I think that was the kind of sign from the last game. No, it wasn't just Sam Darnold offensively on the offensive line. We got to get bigger and try to fortify it. So, no, I'm not going to say enticed, but this is what I don't understand about people who didn't even understand why they would think about it. Because we know what KO did with Josh Dobbs. We know what he's done with all the other backups. We saw what he did with Sam Darnold. Why doesn't that work on older players? See, no one ever put that in the equation. They only think it's these journeyman guys. But what if a guy that has more talent gets that voice in his helmet? And then he's able to capture the magic that he's had. Sam Darnold never had no magic. He had talent, potential.
Yeah.
So I can understand why they would do that, especially with who KO is in the NFL and how guys respect him and what he's gotten out of the position. But ultimately, when you put that card in last year, the day was going to come. And you had to try to get to that day as soon as possible as JJ being the starting quarterback and the face of the franchise. There's no need to keep pushing that ball down the road. Now, behind the scenes, I don't know about the knee, his inability to practice last season.
Yep.
Like it wasn't a true redshirt year. So there are some reasons why they looked at some of these veterans, and I don't believe all those are resolved.
No, that's a great point. And I'm glad you brought up the line of scrimmage because that's music to my ears. I believe that now again, are all these signings going to work out? Who knows? We never know. But these are all accomplished players. They are, I think, clear upgrades over the individuals they're replacing. And for me, it finally seems to suggest that KOC gets it, that the game is more than finesse. And even if you want to throw effectively, there's no better way to help you throw effectively, especially in the red zone, than a real running game, which this team has not had. And they've gotten, as you say, they've added physicality on both the offensive and defensive lines on the interior part. And I think that's all you can ask for. Now, KOC then has to try to implement that stuff and not just always throw the ball when he's at the 9-yard line. But I think all those signs indicate, Chris, that they finally get they watch the Eagles. Like you said, they watched the Lions and what they represented and said, we got to get more of that.
Hey, I know you watched for a long time. They throw the ball in unusual situation to a guy who used to make all them catches. We have that ability for the next 10 years to keep doing that. So I'm not even going to accept your criticism. Any throw in the red zone, when you have the type of weapons and the weapon in JJ, also known as Justin Jefferson, man, don't trip. Let's not lose perspective now.
You're a better end zone target than JJ.
Okay, well, let's not get into that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
But also 99% of everybody else who have played in the NFL either, too.
No, that's true. It's also true. You're right about that.
Yeah, JJ is nice.
That's very true.
JJ has no holes in his game.
Yeah. So let's talk about the way the season ended, too, because you raised another important point. Darnold's numbers were tremendous. He obviously, as you say, emerged And I, at that point, felt, all right, you whatever the plan was, you have to reconsider it. And then, the last 2 games happened. And I don't put all of it on him in both of them. I thought the regular season game, I do put more of it on him there. His accuracy was bad. But the other game, I thought it was a combination of things that happened. And from your perspective, how do you explain what took place in those 2 games? I mean, how rude awakening was it after what had been obviously an incredible regular season?
Well, to me, it wasn't a rude awakening. When you have the type of schedule we had coming down the stretch with Detroit, the Rams, and the Rams in the playoffs, those are tough matchups.
That's true. Yep.
They were going to be, with our left tackle being out, we already had to created mismatches because, Darisaw, who's all pro, all everything left tackle, I got that guy. When we lost him, we were a hodgepodge. The center has been undersized since the day we drafted. We've been getting run over through the center AD gap for the last 5 years. That's not a mystery.
Yeah.
Anybody knows football. So we don't match up with those 2 teams well. And as you can see, the Rams, the way they played against Philadelphia.
Yeah, the best.
I mean, they could have easily been in the Super Bowl.
No question. Yeah.
And Detroit, they have a front, especially their inside guys dominated them. So I understand football, and I understand, and that's just a sample size, but I can't spend $30 million on a quarterback who's not going to be my starter in 2026 when I can spread that $30 million and get me some beefcakes. Get me some offensive and defensive linemen, fortify that from a skilled standpoint, and really give us a chance coming back in 2025 to be one of the best teams in the NFL.
I also think, I want to get your view. Cris Carter is joining us in the Fan, big Salvation Army event coming up Wednesday, which we will talk about in more depth here in a minute. I very much liked the Jordan Mason acquisition, too. I like, because to me that was another sign they're serious about not having Aaron Jones have to play maybe quite as much. They brought him back, but I think he got worn down a bit. And to me, that's another sign that we're taking this running back thing seriously here, too, which all fits together with the changes to the interior of the offensive line. I think Mason had some health issues late last season, but I think he's a nice running back.
No, I think it's a good combination, too, from what they run in San Francisco, because I didn't know a whole bunch about the kid until we signed him. And then we signed him. I went back and started watching the highlights. And most of those highlights end up being a 100-yard game against the Vikings.
Yeah, that's right.
So San Francisco in their blocking scheme, I do think it will provide us the ability to be a little more formidable. And with the running backs, A-Rod, he's going to get nicked. He's a small guy.
Yes.
But his ability to go catch the ball out of the backfield and as a deep threat, anytime he touches the ball, he can take it the distance. He's a great complement to the other skilled guys that we have. So, yes, that does fortify. It's kind of like insurance. You buy the offensive line. You got a young quarterback. Let's get some insurance. Let's get another running back who can run it between the tackles and present a physical presence that the Vikings necessarily haven't had in the backfield consistently through the years.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. What do you think is going to happen with Rodgers? I mean, do you think he's going to end up with Pittsburgh? Do you think he's going to retire? Or what do you make of the direction you think that story is going to go?
I think he really only has one move, and I think it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I know Aaron likes to think he's got more control than what he does, but at the end of your career, man, you're not the same player.
Yeah.
It happens to all of us. You watch the tape, you're like, who's that guy? Yeah, that's you, right? Yeah, that's you. I know. When I was playing my last couple games and I played in the Metrodome with the Dolphins uniform on.
Yes, I remember.
Oh, man, I looked like I was in the CFL. Dropped the touchdown, slipped on a pivot route, my bread and butter. He's like, man, what are you doing out here, man? What are you doing out here? You need to take this home. So play 2 more games and called it quits.
It's funny because I remember that year visiting you in Miami, actually. It may have been in conjunction to you coming back up here for that game. You can speak about it pretty objectively now, and probably not very emotionally because enough time has gone by. But how hard is it at the moment? I mean, that's got to be a hard thing when you're as good as you were. to have to say, man, this ain't happening. Or was it easy? What do you remember about it then?
Well, it's not easy. I mean, you are talking with yourself long before that moment actually happens. And as long as you're getting great results, as long as you know you're being honest with yourself, and then you need a team of people around you, coaches and other players that know you. So for me, I had Randy and Jake, so I could always measure myself, and we were running the same offense. So I knew at a certain point, 7 steps, 6 steps, how much ground I could cover, how much separation I could get. So I could tell, like, from the time we drafted Randy Moss, I knew at that time, okay, bro, you got to hump at these next 3, because after that, it's going to be, let's move on to somebody else.
Yeah.
But but what's hard to come to grips with is, that there's nothing out there that you're ever going to be this good at. And when you stop, man, it's like, you pick up from scratch. It's like, I went on to being a broadcaster, and I went to the bottom of even though I had a high profile job, which helped, but I went to the bottom of the pole compared to where I was in rare air. We call ourselves 1%ers, but now I'm at the bottom. How do I work my way up to respectability? And you want to be able to try to find something that you love doing, and you got a passion to do, and you got emotion to do. But there's just nothing like football, man. When you've been playing this, at that time I was 37. I've been playing the NFL 16 years, like basically my whole life, my whole adult life. I've been in the league. People have been yelling. I've been doing great stuff. Like, it's hard to adjust, but you just have to realize that this was a special time. There will never be another time like this time. It can't be duplicated. But all the attributes that took you to be the star, to be successful in the NFL, are the same attributes you can be successful in any profession, any business, part of any team, any organization.
Do you because again of the uniqueness of, I over the years obviously talked to a lot of athletes at the highest level in various sports, and you can apply, like you said, some of the same things, but they often would tell me, but it's not the same. It can't be, because there's something unique about just the entire experience and the competitive nature of it and who you're in every day with and the locker rooms and all of that stuff. In that sense, is that all irreplaceable? Do you miss that to this day?
It's not duplicatable, man. There's no company that has that type of atmosphere. There's no company that has the economics and the demographics, racially, religion. Like, there's no company that has that. 21 to 35-year-old guys, 75 of them, like, all very, very athletic. Most of them type A personalities, the dream of their life. There's only 28,000 people ever played in the NFL. There's only 14,000 who have played more than 4 years. Like, this is special, special stuff, man. Like, you got to put this in a box on the side. And you can talk about it, but it's hard to relive it and can never be replaced. A veteran player told me that. Like, Chris, you'll never be able to replace it. Like, you'll always be Cris Carter, but you'll never be able to replace it. So I haven't tried to replace it. But I gave everything to football, too. So I have a different perspective now. I'm out of the game. Like, no, I don't want to play no more. And some other young kid deserves the right to play when I'm out there, not my best. Some other kid deserves the right to have his dreams come true, just like my dreams came true.
Over the years, you've been real honest about the battles you came to Minnesota with from a substance abuse standpoint, and how much you always have appreciated this market and the individuals who helped you, help yourself to get past that and to leapfrog that. I don't know that we've ever talked about, and again, those are individuals who weren't players in many cases that you have named previously, and you can do that again if you want. But I'm curious, within the team, were there players during that period or even later that when you look back on, it's a very transient game, right? Some teammates don't last forever or that long. But were there any players you felt like you got the closest to when you look back on your time here to say, No, this was more than a teammate for me. This was somebody special.
Well, I think there's several guys like that. And Jake Reed will always be special. Chris Walsh will always be special. Orlando Thomas, God bless him and his family, has gone on. And him and I were very close. Corey Fuller, very close. The closest one, though, was Jake Reed. Warren Moon and I very close. And Jake Reed was the closest I played. But the most incredible teammate I ever had was Johnny Randall. Johnny Randall, I feel like, is one of my best friends in the world. Like, if I felt like if I had good news or if I had bad news, I would call him. And I have never seen a person humanly grow as much as he has. His knowledge of other situations, how much he cares about human beings, just how worldly he is. Johnny Randall is a one-of-a-kind human being. And him and I have gotten even closer once we retired. And I don't know if Johnny even has told this story, but when Johnny went into the Hall of Fame, he got elected. And Johnny went in before me. Johnny called me to tell me, man, Chris, I'm sorry you didn't get in. And the Hall of Fame is never going to be right until they put you in, because you were the engine behind the Vikings. Like, we would have not been that way without you. And that's one of the most kind gestures.
Yeah.
When we're supposed to be celebrating him, he called me.
That's impressive.
And him and I are so close now, and I'm so impressed. I'm always bragging about who he is, and he's around the Twin Cities. He's doing great stuff. I mean, he's getting guys that we played with, they were down on their luck, sleeping in a hotel. He's got them some type of housing. Really, really special individual. But great question, man. You're getting pretty good at this.
Well, I've only been doing it for like 90 years, so sooner or later, blind squirrel acorn or something like that. Hey, by the way, on a more serious note, have you had much of an opportunity to either visit or correspond at all with Randy Moss?
I cannot lie, I haven't. I've tried, but I haven't.
You just haven't been able to reach him, or?
I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, that's fair. That's a fair answer. I always want your honesty. Tell us a little bit about Wednesday, the collection day, because as I understand it, this is sort of culmination of a month of the Salvation Army food drive. But Wednesday is the big day where you'll be with Lindsay Whalen in the afternoon. As I mentioned, ironically, literally the exact same time we're on the air, 3 to 6:30. Tell me a little bit about what this is about and what you will be up to on Wednesday.
Well, you are correct. It is the culmination of kind of a non-perishable period. And Salvation Army's collecting non-perishable food February 28th through March 26th, culminating with the final drop-off collection you mentioned at Carry 11. And I will be there. And yes, the legend, she will be there. And non-perishable food can be dropped off at 50 metro locations, including Summerlin, Blaze Credit Union, Salvation Army family stores, and service centers. But, man, there are so many people, not only homeless, but there are so many people that need to be fed in the Twin Cities. And for those who haven't heard my story, emotionally, when I came to Minnesota, and physically, I was not the best version of myself. And people like Wheelock Whitney was one of the owners. People like Betty Trilogy, who's still a great, great person, great role in my life. People like Jeff Diamond, Denny Green, they really cared about me. They took care of the human being off the field. So for me, to be able to partner with Salvation Army, to be able to partner with the Vikings, to be able to help them at the things that they do. Because not only the Vikings in the Twin Cities, but I was a Salvation Army kid as a kid. My family got groceries from the Salvation Army. My brother got clothes from the Salvation Army. We got some of their counseling and some of the other things that they do for families. So this is one of the events that we have. 1 million meals will also be presented for approximately 40 full truck semi-trucks will be there. So we want everyone to come out, be able to help out in the Twin Cities. People that have been blessed in the Twin Cities have come there, gone to college, had their professional career start there. Like, let's help out other people. Let's think about our brothers and sisters and try to help them in their time of need.
In addition, I should remind folks that beyond the idea of bringing collected food to that event you'll be attending on Wednesday and hosting, there are monetary donations that also are accepted. $25 will feed a hungry family of 3 for a week. $50 will buy nearly 150 pounds of food. Think about that. $50 will buy nearly 150 pounds of food for Salvation Army food shelves. $100 provides a meal for 180 children. The list goes on. $1,000 will stock a Salvation Army food shelf for a whole day. So there's all these opportunities. You can help unload delivery vehicles, weigh food, stock shelves, and you can get more information there via salvationarmynorth.org. There's a number of ways, I think. The moral of the story is there's a number of ways to help, and obviously this has always been a very important event for you.
It's very, very important. And at this point in my life, too, man, it's such a blessing to be able to give back. When you're wearing a uniform and you're employed by one of the marquee franchises, you have all these thousands of fans and everything, it's easy to do charity work. But, man, to be able to do charity work at this age, next birthday I'll be 60, still be helping out people in the Twin Cities. I just want them to know that I will never forget. And as long as I got breath, I'm going to tell people how great the people are in the Twin Cities. And when the people in the Twin Cities need help, myself, Cris Carter, I'm going to be there to try to help in some sort of way.
Well, I think the connection here is permanent, like you said, no matter how long it's gone. In fact, I get every time you're on texts like this one from Sal and Blaine. Love Cris Carter, my favorite wide receiver as a young kid, as a Vikings fan growing up. My first jersey I ever got, and I got bigger so I could grow into it, as a 13-year-old in 1994. He says, I still wear it to this day on Sundays. A little more snug now as a 44-year-old Vikings fan.
A speedium.
That's okay. He also says he loves the NFL films of the 1998 season where a Chicago Bear calls you old man, and you say, better pray you can play as long as me. I don't remember that. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, Terry Cousins. Don't play with me.
Okay.
Don't play with me, man. At this stage of my career, come on, 13 years in. Oh, man, you better hope tonight. I know you pray because I know he was a Christian. Because I know he prays with us, so I know he's going to be in the inner circle after the game. Don't try me, man. He said, oh, you're just talking because you mic'd up. Hey, guess what? I'm mic'd up. I'm mic'd up because I'm good. They don't mic up sorry players.
Gaardsy, you're going to say?
I was just going to say, I can agree. I can attest to the texter. As a child of the 90s, thankfully, we did buy everything big back then. That was the style. Thank you, Fab Five and others, because it all fits us now. The 84s and the 80s that we all have do fit us now that we're in our 40s, and we didn't even have to go find one at a vintage store. It's just what we had in high school. So it all works out.
That's pretty good. Hey, by the way, before we wrap things up, you mentioned you're very complimentary at KOC. And I'm curious to know specifically what you have observed, because I know you spend, you stay connected to the team, you talk to people, you talk to players, and I'm sure some of it is just personal experience. But what is it in particular that you see, that you've observed that gives you such a good feeling about him?
I mean, he's genuine. He's very thoughtful. And he's connected to this generation of players. Like, when he needs to strike a chord, and he needs to be firm, he does it. And the way his environment is so nurturing. Like, they want the players to be the best version of themselves. They're not trying to make them into something. And just what the players say, what the longtime employees of the Vikings tell me, and they've been around all the coaches.
Yeah.
The result, especially with the passing game, how creative they are. Like, I watched their passing game, and I know how brilliant it is. And then also, I know that some of the personnel that he's played with besides wide receiver is overrated. And he has gotten great results out of overrated players. So I think he's still trying to find, he's still a young coach and everything, but we as the Vikings, as a franchise, we have one of the bright young coaches who's connected with his players. And the people that work in the building, they will break their neck for him.
High praise indeed. What do we have to do? I think I ask you this every year, and I don't think I ever get anywhere, but I'm going to try it anyway. What do we have to do to get you on more often than once a year?
I don't know. It's probably it's probably one of those KFAN things. It's all about the money, man.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, we've tried, as you know. We came close once.
You know when you get me on the air? You get me on the air when I'm doing charity, when you get me for free.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's fair. No, you're right. Well, so, I'm going to see what we can do.
When y'all ever get serious about something.
All right.
One of those KFAN things.
I can't get mad at you. I mean, because I understand it. I mean, you provide something. Now, I don't know if this will make you feel better or worse. Robert Smith joins us I'd probably say Gaardsy, 10 times a year?
That's a little heavy.
Okay, 8 times a year.
I know we're trying to sell Carter on it.
But. He's just doing it out of the goodness of his heart. Is that?
Yeah, you get what you pay for.
Oh, wow. Well played. That's very well played. That's very good. That's very well played. Are you coming in tomorrow? Or Wednesday? What day are you coming in?
I'm coming in Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
All right. Well, safe travels into town. Hope otherwise. Everything going good otherwise? Anything you want to talk about? Anything you want to promote? Because we're more than willing to give you that as free time for sure.
No. I greatly appreciate you guys. I appreciate the relationship. Dan, if you ever need anything and want to talk, just call me.
I appreciate you, man. Have a wonderful event here, as I know you will. And I know, like I said, how front and center you've been, how instrumental you have been in making this thing a significant cause. And you've done great work with it. And as I mentioned, every time we have you on, the texts just pour in. People do not forget Cris Carter.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate the relationship you and I have had for the years.
I'm with you.
I mean, you're hard to like, man, and I like you.
No, both statements. I'm glad you like me. I plead guilty to the original charge. It's a burden. We all have our burdens, Chris. Hey, remember, there were you were not always the most popular player either, but you had to be you, right? That was the point.
Absolutely.
That's what made you.
I respect someone who's talented and stick to their guns. And I respect the way you built your brand.
Well,
yeah. There were several times I wanted to slap you on the top of your bald head, but I couldn't.
I remember those occasions, and you even might have told me that from time to time. But that was the beauty of it. That's what I always say. You got it out of your system. You yelled at me, and we moved on. That was the best way to do it, so it doesn't fester. When it festers, that's when it's bad, Chris, for sure.
Yeah, it's not good.
Thanks again for the time, man. Have fun in here Wednesday.
Go Vikings.
Appreciate you. That is Cris Carter, the one and...
PayPal lets you pay all your pals, like your graduation gifters.
Who's paying for the mattress topper?
You mean the beanbag chair?
Aren't we getting a mini fridge?
Can we create a pool on PayPal? It lets us collect the money before we buy.
Ooh, yes, that's smart.
Glad we can agree on something.
Easily pool, split, and send money with PayPal. Get started in the PayPal app. A PayPal account is required to send and receive money. A balance account is required to create a pool.
And the owner.
Wolves fans, we don't just talk ball, we live it. And now we're throwing you a full court lob. $15 tickets to select March games. Just a few left there. Don't just hear us break it down. You can be there. Feel the energy, lose your voice, howl with them. Use the code KFAN. ! At timberwolves.com/March. That's how you get your $15 tickets.
Yeah, we were, you know this well. I mean, we were close to striking a financial deal to have Cris Carter on, and unfortunately, a couple things broke down.
Yep. It's still on the table.
I would still, it would be, there's got to be a worthy, we've got so many great sponsors, there's got to be a worthy one that might say, you know what, I might want to get a piece of that.
And I'll say this, we're not talking obscene money. Some people think
exactly.
Carter's demanding these crazy amounts of money to do all this stuff. That's not what it is.
We had he had agreed unofficially. And so, it's
one of those KFAN things. That was brilliant. That's just one of those KFAN things.
Brought that up. Well, somebody was offended that or accuses me of you're blowing smoke up his butt when you say better end zone target than JJ, Cris Carter. Is that outlandish a thought?
Truth cannot be controversial.
I don't think it can be. I mean, I'm very capable of blowing smoke, but in fact, I said, well, let's check some numbers here. And by the way, I mean, this is silly. Justin Jefferson is absurdly good.
Yes.
I mean, we all know that. It's not even a matter of that. But I've always viewed Carter as, I mean, to me, that might have been his greatest strength, right? Was the short touchdown pass, so to speak. But I'm looking at Carter's career stats. So his glory years here, starting in 1995.
Okay.
17 touchdowns, then 10, 13, 12, and 13. So that's 5 straight years of double-digit touchdowns. Now, earlier, 1989 in Philly, he also had 11 touchdowns. So for his career, and then afterwards, his last 2 years in Minnesota, he had 9 and 6, okay, at the time where it's starting to fade. Miami, where he admitted he didn't have much left.
Yep.
He only played 5 games and had 1. Here's Jefferson's touchdown totals. We're talking about touchdowns. 7, 10, 8, 5, and last year 10. So I'm not going to do the math on this in terms of on the average, but that's not been his greatest strength. And I'm not even saying, again, that means he's overrated. I'm just saying that I don't think it's crazy to view under that specialized lens to view Carter to this point, and again, obviously JJ's got a lot more years left, as a guy who I identify more with in terms of touchdowns than I do Justin Jefferson. Now, Justin Jefferson is probably going to make the catch that puts the ball in the 6.
Right.
And that still's a touchdown, but it's not necessarily his touchdown. 2 double-digit years there. None so far, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in, as productive from a touchdown standpoint as Carter. I mean, 27, 40, 52... 65 touchdown catches in 5 years is pretty good.
What did he have before Randy? Give me the 3 years before Moss.
So Moss came in
98.
In 98, obviously. So 90. Well, the 3 years before that, 17, 10, and 13.
Yeah, so that doesn't even help my argument if I wanted to play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Because the theory would be everybody's shutting down Randy. That's why that offense was so good. They had so many bleeping options.
Yeah.
And unlike what Cris Carter said, Robert Smith was a part of that, too.
Yeah, that's true.
Was a part of that, too.
You get what you pay for.
What
a
brilliant
shot.
Yeah, I bet Robert would have loved that, though.
Yeah,
that doesn't surprise me Chris said that.
No, not at all.
That's interesting. Well, to your point, though, we talk about, because that's my generation, right? We all wore rubber bands around our wrists for KG.
Yes.
We all put our arm up when we were streaking down the playground like Randy Moss did, because we thought we just cooked somebody. And that's what Moss did, right? He threw his arm up just to let the quarterback know that I'm open, throw it to me. With Carter, all you did when you were trying to imitate Carter, and I know I'm not the only kid that tried to do this, was some type of toe tap in the front pylon of the end zone after you ran the crispest, route of all time. That's how you tried to emulate Carter, those red zone sideline catches, dragging your feet. He probably did that better than anybody at the time.
I've put it this way before. I think I've said this on the air. I know I've written it. Cris Carter is probably not generally going to be viewed as the greatest wide receiver of all time, right? There's Jerry Rice, a couple others in that conversation.
He said basically he was always chasing Jerry.
Correct. But what I have said is, if you, in this hypothetical, said,
you need a catch.
One player needs to make this catch or you will die for your life, I'm taking Cris Carter. I'm serious. I'm taking Cris Carter over anybody. Because, as you say, it's the toe tap, it's the balance, it's the ability to, levitate, where it's almost like he'd be parallel with the ground and still kind of find a way to come down with his feet in bounds. And to make every kind of catch, no matter how accurate or inaccurate the ball was, that was his fame. Obviously, his yards per catch, not great all those years, right? He was more considered, quote-unquote, possession guy.
Right.
But as a red zone receiver, he's been, to this point, a better receiver than Justin Jefferson. That's just flat out fact. Now, you know what might help next year? If they really concentrate more on the running game like they say they're going to in the red zone, which eye test tells you was awful. Analytically, we quoted the comment, the stats that Seifert had. Horrible. Because if you mix that in more and it becomes more of a threat that teams have to take seriously, eventually it'll probably open up some red zone some touchdown catches for JJ there as well.
You would think. Carter also, because they played in the Metrodome on that awful turf, one of the years, must have been 96 or 97, he wore Jordans, like the Michael Jordan basketball shoe with the patent leather.
Yes,
that's
right.
the stuff I noticed as a high school kid.
Sure.
That's badass. That is outstanding.
Dr. Phil, I'm going to give you some juice for the fire. Why does JJ not have very many touchdowns? Because they can kick in on them because of our lack of running game in the red zone. I'd say I'm more hopeful than I have been in a long time because they're finally addressing the defensive lines. Same point we were just making, and it was fascinating that without even being prompted, that's what Carter went to. What Chris went to with us was he loved the beef, adding the beef at the line of scrimmage. Bigger, brawnier, more physical. It's all trite stuff, but it's vital, and it's proof that I think that the Vikings need to be more than finesse-y. Finesse is great, but occasionally you got to mix in some power as well, as certainly the Philadelphia Eagles did and the Detroit Lions within.
PayPal lets you pay all your pals, like your graduation gifters.
Who's paying for the mattress topper?
You mean the beanbag chair?
Aren't we getting a mini fridge?
Can we create a pool on PayPal? It lets us collect the money before we buy.
Ooh, yes, that's smart.
Glad we can agree on something.
Easily pool, split, and send money with PayPal. Get started in the PayPal app. A PayPal account is required to send and receive money. A balance account is required to create a pool.
This division as well.
Show wrap presented by American Pressure, commercial-grade pressure washer since 1975.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
All right, the plan for tonight is fan on demand, as is customary, followed by Minnesota Wild hockey on the flagship. The Dallas Stars, the opponent. I'm assuming anytime we play Dallas, even though I don't think he's got anything to do with the club anymore, there'll be some Norm Sucks texts or tweets that'll come out.
Probably.
Yeah, that seems inevitable.
Usually happens.
Tomorrow, a Power Pack broadcast that will include Johnny Athletic, who generally joins on Monday. We'll get a review of the Wolves, who are back in action on the road against the plucky Indiana Pacers. And we'll chat with the new Golden Gopher men's basketball coach. Nico Medved is scheduled for tomorrow as well. Today we had a fine interview with Tim Miles, who was Nico's boss at Colorado State for, 5-6 years, and had good conversation there. Podcast it. It was between, 4 and 4:30?
Yes.
Is when he joined?
Exactly.
And we got into some good stuff on his career as well, and being a coaching vagabond. And even sort of some of the rules out there. It was a good overview. We had really good college basketball coaching discussions the last 2 weeks. Richard Pitino last week, and him today. So
Eric Musselman last week.
And Eric Musselman, as
That's
well
a hell of
on
a
Friday.
run.
Yeah, it was not
for
a bad
little
run,
show in the
too.
cornfields.
Yeah, Eric went on. I mean, I could have kept going. We were like 35 minutes in. I blew through a break. And so that was last Friday. Also tomorrow, the return of Luigi Lunani. We now know where the Golden Gopher men's hockey team is headed and who they're playing. So we'll get maybe some opinions there, and I'm sure some Minnesota Wild commentary and analysis from Luigi as well. That'll be the lineup tomorrow. So we're pretty chock full. Cris Carter was outstanding today. If you missed the interview or just joining, that was between 5:30 and just past 6 o'clock this evening.
Go to his event on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Donate. And then tell Cris Carter how much you love him on the Bumper to Bumper
show. It would be great. Yeah, maybe that'll add to the momentum, and he'll weaken and even soften his financial demands. maybe if we can get him for half of what he originally was willing to take, we might have a shot.
I think he just wants something for the effort.
I can never argue with that. I honestly
exactly
can't.
Right.
I mean, we are very fortunate that a lot of folks come on and they don't make those demands. I would never be mad if they did.
Right.
Because it's time, and they've got expertise. They've got something they can offer. And you heard, and I also thought it was interesting to listen to Chris on KOC. He has very strong opinions that I'm guessing might interest the Paul Allen Project as well on the KOC run and what he thinks makes KOC effective. Now the next step is we got to be effective in the postseason. But maybe getting bigger and beefier, as Carter said, will be a big part of it. It sounds like he wasn't offended like some people that we were flirting with A-Raj, but that he ultimately understood the decision to move on as well. Yeah.
Because of the KOC part.
I think
right?
Exactly. Same thing.
He brought up Josh Dobbs.
He said, well, if he could help all these. But I think it's viewed differently because the assumption is A-Raj is so stubborn and so dug in that it's going to be a battle even if it shouldn't be. That's his rep. Now, maybe that's unfair to A-Raj. Maybe at this point, as Chris said, he's got to understand he's not in the same position of power that he was. But will A-Raj ever understand that? I don't know. And Chris was very good, I think, also just talking about how no matter how many years go by, you ain't ever going to replace what he says he feels about his football experience, that it's just different. The whole concept is different. Not to mention the fact that when he realized at the end of that last season in Miami that after playing a game here,
it was over.
That there was no turning back.
Was it Gary Anderson that hit the long field goal then? Didn't we bring him back?
Is that true? I don't remember that.
It was him on the sideline basically saying he doesn't have this distance, Carter. And then there was that face.
I don't remember that.
I think it was Gary Anderson when Carter realized that he actually made it because it was a really long field goal.
We'll double check that overnight. That's a good callback. I didn't see that.
I don't remember where I parked in the ramp, but I remember that from 2006, whatever year that was.
And we're going to get to the bottom of Anthony Edwards' hand size. Is it an issue or are we making one up? It's possible we are. Because Johnny went so deep on all those analytic numbers that indicate that as good a play, as a ridiculous career as Anthony's had to this point, that he's not a great finisher in terms of percentage compared to some of the other greats. And we're trying to figure out exactly. I think it may be a balance issue, as odd as that sounds, as athletic as he is. But if you ever, again, want to go back, if you're bored, just watch 20 plays of Michael Jordan at the rim. I don't just mean dunks. I just mean finishing around the basket and his more than anything, what strikes me is his balance. He was never off balance. Even under the basket, there was always a great fundamental balance to what he did, and that's what made him, I think, the greatest finisher of all time. So, back and forth I'll probably do the channel surf tonight between the Wild, who are on the Fan, and the Wolves, who may have already started, by the way, on the Timberwolves channel.
They have.
I'm guessing, because, right, it's Eastern time.
They have. They started at 6.
How are we looking? Are we getting killed already?
Chris Hine tweet, both teams off the mark in the early going, shooting under 40%.
By the way, tomorrow night, this is what we probably should pay more attention to this tomorrow, maybe even talk about with Johnny. Tomorrow night, I think, is the big Buckets return to Miami.
Oh.
That could be interesting. Steph Curry, I think, is also supposed to be back from his butt contusion or back contusion, whatever he had. He fell on his butt and missed it. Was it 1 or 2 games? I'm not sure. But and the other thing you and I should talk about, and I would talk about Johnny with this about this as well. You mentioned Rick Pitino. He sits the conference player of the year.
Right.
The last 5 minutes of the game.
Right.
And it's a good conversation to have because that kind of decision, whether it was right or not, never happens in the NBA, right? Ever.
It's true.
And what are the ramifications of making that? He was defensive about it after the game, was Rick. Didn't like the questioning, but it was a fair question given how important that player had been. He was 3 for 17 was the issue. St. John's couldn't hit a shot, and that's why Coach Cal knocked him off. Thanks for watching. Thank you very much for listening, and we will talk to you tomorrow at 3.